All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go over Ionian Mode, the second mode in the cycle of flats. Okay, let's get to it. I just recently did a video focusing on the circle of fourths and fifths with an emphasis on fourths because this is the process by which we add flats. The cycle of fourths is more relevant to jazz because of the way we add flats. The first flat that you add cancels the last sharp that you added. So in the key of D major, we'd add a flat that would cancel the C sharp, making it a C natural. So in that cycle of fourths, going from the key of D major to G, you can see how we've canceled the C sharp to a C natural. Then we'd cancel the F sharp if we were in the key of G, which brings us up a perfect fourth to the key of C. So to me, it's much more important, if we're going to study it from a theoretical point of view, to understand this cycle of adding flats. The cycle of adding sharps is the circle of fifths. It's the inverse when you think about it. Okay, so Ionian mode is second. Normally, we learn Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, etc. We learn it up the major scale, which personally I think is a stupid way of learning this because it doesn't really make any sense. But the order by which we are actually adding flats makes tons of sense because you are cycling through the cycle of fourths. Okay, so let's talk specifically about Ionian mode. Now, Lydian to me should definitely be, from a theoretical point of view, our starting point. However, in actual functionality and actual practice, Ionian mode is giving us a really nice advantage. Now, when I talk about Ionian mode, these are intermediate jazz level lessons in studying modes. I'm talking about major sevens, not so much like triads and that kind of thing. So there's two things that we really want to clue our ear on when it comes to Ionian mode. What's happening with the major seven and what's happening with the perfect fourth. Okay, let's get to it. Let's talk about what the perfect fourth in Ionian mode from a jazz perspective does. That perfect fourth going to the major third, let's say we're in the key of C. Gives us a nice sense of resolution. It's a nice kind of suspended thing resolving down to the major third. When we look at the relationship of the perfect fourth and the major seven of Ionian mode, it's giving us really good information about what came before. So the 5 chord would be a G7, so the B natural, and the F are the perfect fourth and the major seven of the chord that comes next to it. So when you go back and forth between emphasizing the major seven and moving off of that perfect fourth to the major third, it constantly sounds like you're shifting between the 1 and the 5 chord, like this. All right, so we get built in that scale, this free function of the 5 chord. So it kind of sounds like you know what you're doing. You're making these changes when you may not be that familiar with it anyway. Let's focus on the major seven because there's something really interesting that's going on here. The thing that really increases the emotional relevance of major by adding that major seven is the relationship that the major seven has to the root. If you play a major 7 chord and you play the root and hang on to it, it sounds wrong for all intents and purposes. And if you're doing arranging, it is wrong. Unless that is the specific kind of tension that you want, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble with your arranging if you have that root on the top of a major chord. You have essentially created the infamous interval of a flat 9. This is something that you definitely want to avoid when you're arranging, and you need to think about it when you're soloing also. Now, when I say the infamous interval of a flat 9, I'm not talking about dominant 7 flat 9 chords. I'm talking about a specific way of voicing a chord that makes it sound bad. At an intermediate level, you should start to be familiar with this problem of the interval of a flat 9. Okay, so what we want to do in a major 7 chord is emphasize the major 7. We get the same kind of thing when we have a minor 9. If I have a minor 9 chord and I got the 3rd right on the top, sounds very, very bizarre. It's not the kind of tension that we generally want. Usually on piano, because that attack dies off so quickly, you can get away with it and it's not so obvious. But if you have it in the horns, it's going to sound like a disaster. Let's say we have a D minor 9. It's that same kind of major 7-y thing. Even if you have a dominant 7-13, we're really focusing on that interval of a major 7. So if you have a C13, you have a B flat, and then you have an A natural. We definitely want to emphasize that A natural, and that tension is really drawing our ear toward the A natural. It increases that emotional thing that we associate with the 13 chord or a major 7 chord or a minor 9 chord. So let's say we have a B half diminished. We have that same major 7 interval between the flat 5 and a perfect 4th. Remember, both of those notes are essential at helping to define the sound of the chord. So let's take a look at the subtlety and the difference between a G13 and a C major 7, because the essential notes, aside from the G and the C, we have the E, F, and the B natural. The G13 emphasizes the F natural and the E being paired together, where the C major 7 emphasizes getting off of that F, because the F does not define the sound of the major 7, whereas the F helps to define the sound of the G7. All right, it's a subtle difference, but it is a very, very important one. So I'm going through all of these modes, and it's important to not just understand what they are and how people look at them, but if we don't have a functional understanding of how to use these modes, what we should be hearing when we are playing these modes, then they can essentially be useless to us. I got 2 left. I got Mixolydian, and then I have Aeolian. Big stuff coming up on Mixolydian. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that's all I got for you. See ya!